Hello, welcome to Papa Nick's Music. I am, as always, your host, Papa Nick Lewis, and today, I had a, I had a completely different video that I was going to do, but then yesterday I made the mistake of clicking on a Rick Beato video, and well, here we are. Every once in a while, Rick Beato uploads a video that is just, a steaming turd of an argument, and he did it again. Yesterday, he posted this. The new musical Dark Ages are here. Oh, God. Normally, at this point, the videos I've done in the past where I have complained about Rick Beato, I go out of my way to say something nice about him first, about how I really like his "What Makes This Song Great" videos. But screw it, I'm not dealing with that anymore. I'm not going to put any lipstick on this pig at all. In the video, Rick tells us that he's been thinking a lot about a compilation album that he used to own, The Superstars of the 70s. This album right here. It is 4 albums worth of Warner Brothers and related artists' hits from the early 70s. 48 tracks of, pure 70s gold, with a couple of late 60s thrown in. Yeah. He tells us that he has asked Tom and John that work here how many of these 48 songs they recognized. And they knew most of them, over 90% of them. He tells us that Tom was born in 1997 and John was born in 1985, implying that their ages are an indicator of how good and how evergreen this music is. Of course, he has a biased sample because they're 2 people who work for him, which means that they are bound to know much more about the music that Rick Beato likes than the average person will, but let's not look too closely at that. We might start doubting our gray-bearded superiority. Rick goes on to mention how many streams these songs have, again as evidence of their lasting success. Then he plays clips of most of these songs. During these clips, he does his standard air guitar and rock face stuff. 10 minutes later, he mentions that a playlist of these songs is available on Spotify. Yes, 10 minutes later. 10 minutes of this 14.5-minute video is him playing clips of these songs. And this is the guy who is at the vanguard of our discussion of what is and is not fair use. Jesus Christ. Anywho. At 13 minutes and 53 seconds in a 14.5-minute long video, he finally gets to his point. Screw it, I'm going to go off on the tangent. I got a comment just here within the past week. Somebody who was irate at one of my videos, the Paul McCartney album ranking video that I did. This guy was pissed because 10 minutes into the video, I still hadn't gotten into the ranking yet. I was building context for the ranking. Well, I just spent 10 minutes listening to Rick Beato play clips of songs where he says he's playing the clips in case we don't recognize them. And it's like, well, if we don't recognize them, then they're not the evergreen songs you think they are they, pal? Oh, Jesus Christ. The gaps in this guy's logic are just, they blow my mind. But anyway, I told myself I wouldn't go off on that rant. And like I said, at the 13 minute and 53 second mark, he gets to his point. And his point is, if we made a similar album today, what would it include? What would a Recording Stars of the 20s include? What 48 tracks could we generate culled from the recorded output of popular music between 2020 and 2026? What would that even look like? And then, he says, if we could go into the future to 2079 and imagine the 30 and 40-year-olds of then, the equivalents of the 2 guys who work for him, how many of these tracks would they recognize? And I got to admit, first off, that if we're sticking to the analogy, and if these are the 2 guys who work for the 2079 equivalent of Rick Beato, then I'm willing to bet, because that I would say that YouTuber, but it's not going to be YouTube. It's going to be neural implants and direct uploads and all that sort of shit. But anyway, whoever that is who's making their money in 2079 by waxing poetic about how wonderful the music was in the 20s, two people working for that guy. Yeah, they're they're going to recognize most of these songs. But I digress. No chance they'll hit 90%, Rick says. Yeah. He wraps up by challenging us to come up with songs to include on his hypothetical Superstars of the 20s collection, imploring us to subscribe, and then he calls it a day. Now, as of today, April 2nd, 5:30 Central, a little after 5:30 Central now because I've been struggling with multiple takes here, a little over 6,500 comments have been left. I scrolled very quickly through those comments before I started this recording, just to see if anyone did their homework. What I saw did not surprise me. The comments predictably skew very heavily towards, boy, you're right, Rick. Music used to be great, but today it's not. Ooh. Some of the commenters are self-aware enough to mention that this music resonates with them because it takes them back to their youth, which Beato himself admits. When he plays the clip of Alice Cooper's School's Out, as soon as it starts, he says, I'm 11 years old again. Yeah, that's a big chunk of the reason why you like it, Rick. There were a couple of commenters who actually did leave suggestions for musicians for songs that they thought might be remembered fondly. But the overwhelming majority of the commenters took Rick's not too subtle cue to bash modern music. Now, I am firmly in Beato's demographic. I'm just a year younger than he is. I too cherish the music of the 60s and 70s. I too think that music recorded when I was young is better than music that is recorded today. For me. My tastes are actually a little bit older than Beato's, if I'm being honest, because he has a fondness for music recorded in the 90s that I think is utter shit. But still, I'm the choir that he's preaching to. That being said, I don't, not even for a second, believe that the music of my youth is objectively better than the music of today. I don't, not even for a second, believe that a pop or rock album that was recorded relatively live using analog equipment with razor blades and tape used for editing is objectively superior to an album recorded digitally with plugins and MIDI samples shaping the sound. I don't, not even for a second, believe that a natural, unenhanced vocal performance is objectively better than a pitch-corrected, auto-tuned vocal. I prefer the music of my youth. I prefer analog recordings. I prefer unprocessed vocals, but these are preferences, not objective realities. Today's music fans have different palates than I have. They like things that I don't care for. Their preferences are different. If we ask a group of 20-somethings to come up with the 48 songs recorded in the last 6 or so years that we can use to build our Superstars of the 20 albums, they're going to be able to do it. The only struggle they're going to have is winnowing it down to just 48 songs. I'm not going to recognize any of these songs. But that's simply because I'm over 60 and I listen to different music than they do. I am nowhere near arrogant enough to think that my critical assessment of their musical tastes is in any way meaningful or appropriate. More importantly, if we want to be fair playing this game that Beato is encouraging us to play, we have to imagine going back to 1973. We have to imagine that we are assembling our Superstars of the 70s compilation album. Now, we have to imagine somebody who was born in 1913. That hypothetical guy, born at the onset of World War fucking I, that guy who came of age during the Great Depression, we bring that guy in. He takes a look at our song listing. He takes a look at the tracks that we have picked. for the superstars of the 70s. How many of these songs is he going to recognize? How many is he going to like? How likely is it that instead of liking the music that we've picked for our Superstars of the 70s compilation, how likely is it that he's going to ask us why we aren't including anything by Bing Crosby, or Guy Lombardo, or Glenn Miller, or Duke Ellington? We, the 1973 young hip music people, we're going to recognize the names. We might even like Glenn Miller and Duke Ellington. We're not going to like Guy Lombardo. We might recognize the names, but are we going to seriously consider even 1 second entertaining the thought that Roy Noble and his new Mayfair Orchestra's Love is the Sweetest Thing in any way compares to Summer Breeze or Lucky Man? Love is the Sweetest Thing, #1 on the charts for 5 weeks in 1933. It was a hit, baby. I don't mind that Rick Beato doesn't like modern music. I haven't liked most modern music for going on 30 goddamn years, so I certainly can't fault Beato for not liking today's music. If he wants to think modern music is crap, that is certainly his prerogative. But I do mind, I strongly mind, that he insists on making the argument over and over again that today's music is objectively bad, which is horse shit. I do mind his insistence on building his brand and lining his pockets by encouraging his rapidly aging audience to revel in the joys of bashing the whippersnappers. And for once, just for once, I wish Rick Beato would have the intellectual honesty and balls to admit that he is simply behind the times. And that's what I've been thinking about this week. What do you think? Am I being unfair to poor little Rick? Drop that comment down below. I always love hearing from you. If you enjoyed today's video, I'd appreciate it if you click the like button. And while you're down there, hey, I shill for subscriptions too. I wouldn't mind if you would also subscribe if you haven't already done so. It costs you nothing, but it means the world to me, so I very much appreciate it. And yeah, I understand how hypocritical I'm being. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I enjoyed it. Oh, it's good to vent your spleen every once in a while. And I hope the rest of your day is blissful. See you soon.